Write what you know. What does that even mean? Does it mean if you're a plumber that all your stories have to be about plumbers? Does it mean if you're a soldier that all your stories have to be gritty war stories or tales about boot camp? If you're bad at coming up with a third example, does it mean all your stories have to be about your struggles with coming up with a third example? I'm going to say no. Now maybe I'm going against all the other YouTube writing videos you've watched, but I don't care. I'm a loner, Dottie. I'm a rebel. Being a plumber, a soldier, or even an international spy are just the big things in your book. The big things get people to want to look at your book, but they don't get people to stay with the book until the last page, which is what a writer really wants, right? For a bit of lore about me, I used to be a computer programmer. I was terrible at it, but luckily my employer never figured that out. At least I don't think they did. Now I could write a book that has some people who program computers in it, and other tech nerds might see some computers on the cover or see some techno jargon in the synopsis and decide to check out my book. But even the most amazing and dedicated computer programmer in the world doesn't want to read a story that is just about computer programming. They want things that every reader wants, a reason to turn to the next page. Would they really want to hear about how I spent long hours chasing a bug that was only affecting 2 or 3 people, and even when it did, it really didn't hurt anything that much? Probably not. I could talk about how the reason I really want to fix that bug was because, back then at least, being better than other people was important to me for some reason. So when all the other programmers had decided to not try and fix it anymore, I wanted to do it even more to prove that I actually belong there. See, you're already bored, even if you are a programmer. Now another bit of lore about me is that I'm a father, and for a long time I raised my 2 daughters pretty much on my own. So if instead of talking about my fixing bugs in computer code, I talked about the day I got laid off, maybe people would find that a bit more interesting. Describing myself sitting in a small office with a woman I had never met talking about how the company was shifting focus and adjusting to the needs of the market. It all is an introduction to letting me know that my life was drastically changing forever. Did she really think that telling me that ruining my life for the good of the company was going to make the news easier for me to swallow? Were the 2 little girls who I had to provide for going to take comfort in the fact that they might not be getting anything for Christmas, but at least the investors were going to be happy? The ice-cold water in my veins as I signed my severance package, the numb, floating feeling that followed me for days afterward, and the constant dread that followed me for the whole next year? Wouldn't all that be more interesting and more relatable? Well, not everyone has been laid off. Not everyone has had to raise 2 daughters as a single dad. But everyone has been afraid, lost, been in moments of helplessness, felt a loss of control over their future, or had the course of their life unexpectedly change in a heartbeat. When we start plotting out our books, maybe we want to look at the big things. Maybe we want to explore a theme. My book, The House on the Willow Street, is more or less about how we never tell the people in our lives who mean the most to us how we really feel about them. The Lord of the Rings is about keeping up the fight even when there's no hope of victory. And The House of Leaves is about, well, I have no idea what The House of Leaves is about, but it's a pretty good book, mostly. But it's not the big things that will make the reader keep reading. Yes, we can use age-old page-turner methods like cliffhangers at the end of a chapter, and that's perfectly fine. Readers expect those, some even like them, and they're willing to let us get away with it. While cliffhangers and witty dialogue might get them to turn the pages, we want more than that. At least I do, and you probably do too. We want the reader to feel something. That's important, at least for me. I don't want readers to finish my story and then forget about it. I want it to linger in their head, at least for a little while. And we do that by connecting to our reader through emotions. Now, all the emotions in your story don't have to be heavy and depressing. Yes, Angela's Ashes sold 1 million copies and had a movie made out of it, but so did Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And writing what you know comes out in the small moments, and the small moments are what your book really is. Your book might have 1,000 pages, but just 10 pages out of that book can make or break the entire thing. If you make me burst out laughing, if you make me angry, if you teach me something, if you make me cry, I'll remember that whenever I pass by the book and want to pick it up and finish reading it, or maybe even read the whole thing all over again. And you can do that by writing what you know in the context of your emotion, because I have had those same emotions. Maybe I don't know how to unclog a sewer main, but I do know how a tough job can be really frustrating and can lead you to doing and saying things that you might regret later. Maybe I have never been sprayed in the face with raw sewage when I get that sewer main unclogged, but I have felt disgust and embarrassment and can relate to how something horrible touching me makes me want to get it off as quickly as possible, and smelling something so bad that all I want to do is throw up. You know, I'm really itching to read a book about a plumber now. But what if something happens in your story and you really don't know it? I have never given birth and I have never nursed a child. so I can't go into all those details and explain all the feelings that a new mother would have in those moments, so I won't write those. Or I can describe them in general tones or paint with broad strokes, as they say. However, I can relate to the feeling of love for a newborn child and the fear of the responsibility of parenting, so I can write about those. Obviously, I'm not saying that if you're a plumber, you should not write books about plumbers, or if you're a soldier to not write books about soldiers. That would be ridiculous. John Grisham was in the legal profession, and he knew a lot about being a lawyer, so most of his books take place in that world. But his books are not just about being a lawyer. Even though he's an excellent writer, I don't think even he could make digging through reams of prior case law all that exciting. In addition to knowing how to lawyerate, he knows what it's like to be poor and struggling while working his way up through the ranks, and he taps into that emotion in several of his books. Even if you did not know the first book about lawyerology, a lot of us can relate to being poor. Even if you've never been poor, you probably have worried about being poor someday. It's a common thread that everyone who reads his book can relate to, even if they aren't a lawyer. So that's it. Write what you know, but use what you know about emotions. Emotions that are universal and can be understood by everyone. Use those emotions to create the small moments in your book that are going to keep your readers coming back for more, even if they aren't plumbers.